AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Czymbor and Mike Pava here with you on this Tuesday morning, PM in the AM. Remember, you can live chat and follow along with us throughout the morning show on Twitter at PM in the AM Boston. Make sure you like us on Facebook, and the best place to hear archived content and interviews from this program is on our official YouTube channel at youtube.com/PM in the AM Boston. Tomorrow night at City Hall Plaza in Boston, performing will be Charlie Thomas's Drifters, legendary rock and roll band fronted by the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer himself, Charlie Thomas, and the musical director for Charlie Thomas's Drifters, and has been for many years, is a Brockton resident who is my friend and yours, Mr. Jack Colombo, who joins us in studio now. Jack, it's been many years since you and I have been on the radio together, and this is the first time we're on the radio together here on the Metro South Morning Show in our brand new digs here at 250 Belmont Street. Welcome.
Good morning. It's incredible to be here. The new studio looks fantastic.
I'm glad.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Jack, what has changed since the last time we spoke to you on the airwaves? I remember that you were promoting some shows and whatnot with Charlie Thomas's Drifters on your own at the Shaw Center and at different places. Tomorrow night you guys are at City Hall Plaza in Boston. How have things been going these past few years?
Things are going great. You know, I'm going on 12 years that I've been with Charlie Thomas, and I'm still promoting shows, but I'm primarily performing with Charlie. Like I said, it's been 12 years, and this show tomorrow night is very, very special to me. We played it 3 times before, but it's been a few years since we've been there. And it's a great event. It's a family event. The weather's supposed to be absolutely fantastic. I think it's going to heat up a little bit tomorrow, but tomorrow night's supposed to be gorgeous out. Family-friendly event. We start at 7 o'clock, and we play for about an hour and a half. And you'll be hearing the Drifters' legacy. They'll be performing all their hits.
And we'll mention that this is a free event at City Hall Plaza in Boston. More often than not, events at City Hall Plaza in Boston are free, but they have been fencing off that part of City Hall Plaza here and there for some big festival concert shows as of late, but this is one of those free concerts. What are the crowds that you guys get at events like this? Because when you hear the Drifters' name, even if you don't know who they are, you look at the repertoire of songs and you say, I know that song, I know that song, I know that song. Oh, I love that song.
The crowds we usually get, they can be smaller theaters from 700 to 800 people, and we've done some larger venues where there's upwards of 11, 12, 13,000 people, which is, in that case, it's typically a multi-act show with other acts. But tomorrow night, being a good night with the favorable weather forecast, I'd say we could probably get about 2,000 there.
What have your crowds been like in the past performing at this exact location at City Hall Plaza? Has it been in the thousands?
Absolutely.
Wow,
yeah,
that's incredible.
It has.
Once again, we're chatting with Jack Colombo here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Brockton resident and musical director for Charlie Thomas's Drifters, performing at City Hall Plaza in Boston tomorrow night. Drifters were ranked number 81 by Rolling Stone magazine in their list of the top 100 groups of all time. Under the Boardwalk, Stand By Me, so many others.
Up on the Roof, on Broadway, Save the Last Dance for Me, This Magic Moment. And I do want to, you mentioned Stand By Me, and that song was actually released by Benny King, who is also a member of the Drifters. Yep, so that was a solo record for Benny, actually. A lot of people associate that song as being a Drifters song, but Benny did record it solo.
Prior to this interview, I said you off air, Benny King's still alive and kicking. I know that because he has the same publicist as Willie Nelson, of all people.
Oh, okay. I never knew that.
And Charlie Thomas and him still stay in contact, you said?
Absolutely. And on occasion, they do work together. There are only 2 original Drifters left, and that would be Benny King and Charlie Thomas.
Now, you mentioned there are only 2 original Drifters left. Here's something I find interesting. Tomorrow night, Charlie Thomas's Drifters will be performing at City Hall Plaza in Boston. Yet there's another group that goes by the name the original Drifters, that performs and plays Drifters songs across the country. What's the difference between the two? How do we separate what's real from what's fake?
Okay. Both the groups are very legitimate. The original Drifters, as you quoted, that was a group of Drifters that was around prior to 1959. The leader of the group was the bass vocalist, and his name was Bill Pickney. In 1959, they were performing at the Apollo Theater in New York City, and they had a riff with management. And management, who happened to be George Treadwell at the time, fired Bill's group And that evening, Charlie Thomas's group, the Five Crowns, were performing on the bill as well. And George Treadwell approached Charlie and said, I want you guys to be the New Drifters. So that evening, Charlie Thomas and Benny King and the other members became the New Drifters. And that's actually when their string of hits began. Their first hit in '59 was There Goes My Baby. And then it just exploded like wildfire from there. Save the Last Dance, This Magic Moment, Under the Boardwalk, Up on the Roof. And that's when that legacy began.
So Charlie Thomas continuing on this legacy that you are a part of as the musical director for the Drifters, which are playing at City Hall Plaza in Boston tomorrow night. What are some noteworthy Drifters songs where Charlie Thomas's voice is very prominent on the song and people would know it? Because with vocal groups like the Drifters, you sometimes had different guys singing lead on different tracks throughout the years.
Yeah, they had many guys actually coming in and out of the group singing lead on different tracks. Charlie is actually on every track that Drifters ever recorded from 1959 on. Sometimes the lead vocals were doubled and shared, so you may hear two vocalists singing at once. It may sound like one, but you hear two at once switching off parts. He sang some of the lead in There Goes My Baby, When My Little Girl Is Smiling, Sweets of My Sweet, Room Full of Tears. And notably, Charlie, when the Drifters performed live throughout the 60s, Charlie, more often than not, was the lead singer on all of the songs when they performed live. So that's interesting.
And he'll, of course, be the lead singer tomorrow night at City Hall Plaza in Boston. Festivities get underway, at 7 p.m.?
7 p.m.
7 p.m., Charlie Thomas's Drifters at City Hall Plaza in Boston under the musical direction of Brockton's own Jack Colombo. How did you get involved with such a legendary group as the musical director? You're a Brocktonian, and you have a plethora of experience playing with some world-class musicians and some very noteworthy acts over the years.
Well, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to do music for a living. And I took organ and piano lessons up through the age of about 20. And I started performing when I was 14. And I was in different local bands up through high school. And when I graduated high school, I went on the road. When I graduated, the club work and hotel work was plentiful. The economy was great, and bands were working 6 nights a week.
You were the piano man, weren't you?
I was trying to be. I was trying to be. And I worked 6 nights a week. I traveled, and then I settled back down in the area, working weddings and functions locally. And I actually hooked up with an agent from Cape Cod that was bringing Charlie in for an event, and she wanted me to put a group together. And so that's where my relationship with Charlie began. And then I started networking, and I met other people through Charlie, and that's how that all happened.
There is a lot of groups from that era and even past that era that are still around and kicking that usually at this point mainly keep their careers going as touring groups. They're not really recording new material because, with all due respect, no one's clamoring for another Drifters album, but you want to hear all the classics from the 60s. You got the Temptations still kicking around. We just had Otis Williams from the Temptations on the show a few weeks ago.
I'm aware of that.
And this was very interesting to us. Otis is the only surviving member of the original Temptations that is still alive. So it's him performing with other guys, some of whom have been in the band for about 30 years. But people still say to themselves, the only guy that actually sang on My Girl and, Let It Rain and all those big hits was Otis Williams there. There does seem to be a lot of these groups still around in name, but not all the members actually there.
No, you're talking, unfortunately, an older demographic. A lot of the groups from that era, they had a tough life, before and after their fame and legacy. But it's very difficult to find a group from that era with all original members, unfortunately, because of the age.
Well, we've got the Drifters playing at City Hall Plaza in Boston tomorrow night. Jack, who are some of the other noteworthy acts you've played with over the years? Because as I look down at the resume of bands you performed with, I'm just flabbergasted at how you've done all this.
Well, I'm very fortunate. My resume is just reached 100 acts this past 2 months. I recently worked for the first time with a reunion with Martha and the Vandellas, who did, of course, Dancing in the Streets and Heatwave.
Did they do some shows with Charlie Thomas's Drifters at one point?
In the past, they have, yes. Absolutely.
I think I saw one of them on PBS at one point. Was that you?
It was.
Okay.
It was, yeah. We've done a lot of PBS shows, and I arranged a couple of segments for that as well, yeah. Yeah.
As I'm looking down the list, one that stands out in my mind due to the fact that we just had Mike Love of the Beach Boys on the program last week is that you've worked with Al Jardine of the Beach Boys.
I have.
How's Al to work like?
Al is a gentleman, and he's a phenomenal talent, and he sounded great. And to play, actually get on stage and play Help Me Rhonda for Real, with the real deal was like one of the best.
That's a signature song right there. If there was ever a song to play with Al Jardine, that's the song.
Yeah. And he also actually sang, that night we did California Girls as well, which wasn't his lead vocal, but still, to do that with an original member of the Beach Boys was phenomenal. I have a certain handful of groups that's like, wow, I really can't believe I was on stage with them. And he's one guy that I'm very proud and blessed to have worked with.
Where did you play with Al Jardine of the Beach Boys, and under what setting was it? Because I remember Al Jardine, when he left the Beach Boys, he had a group called, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was something like Beach Boys and Friends. And I think Mike Love said, wait a minute, I'm the Beach Boys, and sued him. And then Al Jardine became the Surf City All-Stars, whereas him and one of the guys from Jan and Dean, whichever guy is still around from that group. And I think his son was involved, and David Marks and a few other guys who had been touring support for the Beach Boys over the year. When you played with him, was he just Al Jardine, or was it under the auspice of one of these bands?
It was Al Jardine. I was actually the vocal group Hall of Fame. They're out of Sharon, Pennsylvania. I was one of the music directors and keyboard players, and there was one particular year where they had a concert that ran over 3 days. They brought in about 30 groups, and I played with about 15 of those bands, and Al was one of the guest artists performing that evening, so I got to play with Al, and, it was one night, but, it was a wonderful day, and he just came in as Al Jardine, and some friends of mine who were backing musicians played along with him as well.
Now, when you have bands in the summertime touring from the era of the Drifters and beyond, a lot of them hit the tents, the South Shore Music Circus, Cape Cod Melody tents. Do you ever get any work with bands who are touring as a result of things like that? Also, the Hanover Theater in Worcester, I see, has a lot of acts from that era kicking around and performing.
Yeah,
Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, where it's Frankie Valli and four really younger guys that are substantially younger than Frankie Valli perform. I'd still go see them, but it is what it is.
Oh, they're great. Oh, it is what it is. Charlie Thomas worked the Hanover Theater years ago prior to me, but I have been to the South Shore Music Circus and the Cape Cod Melody Tent with Charlie. You know what happens? It's all one big network. It's a big network, but a small family, so to speak. Nights off, I'll get calls from other groups that they need a keyboard player for the night, and if I'm available, I'll go work with them. Most of our shows are multi-act, where they'll have 3, 4, 5 groups on at once. And if I'm there, typically they'll take the band leaders from each act and form that nucleus to back up all of the acts that night. When I'm playing locally, if it's only the Drifters, I have a network of people I call. And in this area, I have a certain few people that I call to work with us.
You called upon someone earlier to play acoustic guitar tomorrow night, I heard.
I did. I've been thinking about this a long time, and I think it's about time that happens. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, do you know who he is?
I've heard of him. I heard he has a radio show that's okay.
Peter someone?
For those that don't know, Jack Colombo, prior to this interview, suggested that I play guitar with the Drifters tomorrow night at City Hall Plaza in Boston. And I'm thinking to myself, Charlie Thomas is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know 5 to 7 chords on guitar and strum along and sing along every day.
You'll be okay.
I'll be okay?
You'll be fine. Charlie someday will say, geez.
You know I'm going to tell all my friends about this today, right?
Well, you have to. Charlie someday will say to me, wow, I had Peter play, and he's in the Radio Hall of Fame or whatever you guys have, But, it would be an honor for you, to come up and play a song with us. I think we can arrange that if you'd like to.
I would love it. That would be awesome.
Good. Well, if you're there, we'll make it happen.
Mike Pave is nodding his head right now. He's bringing the camera to put this up on our YouTube channel if this is going to happen. Yes.
That's fantastic.
This is going to happen.
Well, we can make it happen.
I'm looking forward to it. Now, Charlie Thomas put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class of 1988 along with the Drifters. Who else was in that class? Do you know off the top of your head or no?
I believe that was the year the Beatles got inducted.
I was thinking the same thing.
I believe that was the year. In fact, I'm 99% positive because, he talks about the event running late, and if I recall correctly, McCartney and Ringo Starr were there, and I think that's the date.
Did George Harrison not show up because he was beefing with the other two members at some point?
I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not sure. I could find out, but...
Isn't it a shame when you watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction year in, year out? There hasn't been too much of this lately, though I can think of one example where... I think of when Blondie got inducted. They were bickering on stage with each other as they're receiving their award.
You know, I never knew that.
And you're thinking to yourself, guys, just enjoy the moment for what it is. Put your differences aside. Accept this honor, and put everything aside for one night and one night only. The only one I can think of in recent years, and it wasn't really, any bickering or not getting along, but it was noticeable in one person's absence, is that Axl Rose was not there when Guns N' Roses got inducted.
That's true.
And that's the voice of the band.
I remember that. Yeah. It's too bad. I mean, it's such an incredible honor, and, you're putting your stamp in musical history, and that happens. But I noticed that with a lot of the older artists from the 60s, it seems like as people get a little bit older and, life goes on a bit in years, that they do mellow out and a lot of those differences are reconciled. And, I mean, that's the good thing. I think if the Beatles got inducted later, say in the 90s, they were mellowing out and they were talking a lot more, especially Lennon and McCartney. And I think things would have been different at that point for them.
Once again, we're chatting with Jack Colombo here on AM 1460, the new WXBR musical director for Charlie Thomas's Drifters, playing at City Hall Plaza in Boston tomorrow night as part of Mayor Thomas Menino's free summer concert series. Where else do you guys play throughout the year? Spot shows here and there, do some tours, promote some shows on your own. How exactly does the touring lifestyle of Charlie Thomas work circa 2013? Okay.
It's basically on weekends. I mean, we do work weekdays, of course. We don't limit ourselves. But we travel throughout the country. We play casinos. We just recently worked Foxwoods. We were at Mohegan last year. We're at Mohegan Sun probably every other year.
The Wolf Den. Great place to catch a free show.
We were actually in the... it is. I actually just worked the Wolf Den. Do you know the guitarist Esteban?
I don't, off the top of my head, no.
He has... you could see his infomercial at night. He sells the Esteban guitar. He sort of looks like Zorro with the black hat and, the black outfit and sunglasses. And he's a very well-known guitar player. And I just actually worked the Wolf Den with him. I was called in and needed a keyboard player. That's an incredible room.
It really is, and you can actually be on the outskirts playing slots and looking in and enjoying the music.
Awesome.
It's a really cool experience.
It's awesome. The sound and lighting, the tech crew's wonderful. When I work with Charlie at the Mohegan Sun Casino, it's typically in the arena, and we work the Bowser shows. Remember Bowser from Sha Na Na?
Yes, and I believe Bowser is playing the Melody Tent of the Music Circus within the next week or so, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, he just did.
He just did, okay.
Yeah, it was a week or two ago, yeah. Yeah, so we work there. Some notable venues, the Beacon Theater in New York. We've worked Woodstock about every other year. We work a multi-act show at Woodstock in New York. The DTE Energy Theater in Detroit is a great venue, very similar to the Comcast Center. A lot of theaters, so it's an eclectic mix of places that we're able to go.
Now, you've ventured into promoting your own shows here and there. The one that I recall off the top of my head was at the Shaw Center here in Brockton years ago. Any plans to do that again?
I think I would in a heartbeat. I have an associate, Todd Baptista, a very good friend of mine, actually an author and a music historian, and he and I have been promoting shows together, and we do about 3 a year. We've been doing 2 a year at the Zeiterion Theater in New Bedford. And we have one coming up in Rhode Island on October 12th at the Harvest Fair in Cranston. So we're still doing it, but I'm mainly involved in the performing aspect.
You mentioned earlier that you mainly work on weekends with Charlie Thomas's Drifters as you have day jobs. You have a day job. What does Charlie Thomas do during the week? Does Charlie Thomas have a day job, or is he just Charlie Thomas?
Actually, Charlie's... doesn't have a day job. Well, I could say Charlie's day job is golfing. He's in his mid-70s now.
I call that a hobby, but sure.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't really do anything during the day. It's all.
And he shouldn't have to. He's in his mid-70s. No. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Enjoy the fruits of your labor, my friend.
Absolutely. But with the thing of it, Charlie, I'll call Charlie. I just spoke with him this morning, and I'll call up and go, Charlie, what are you doing? He says, I'm working. And what are you doing, Charlie? Cleaning your garage, working around the house? He goes, no, I'm golfing. So that's why, the work and golf thing tie in together. And actually, during the week, my day job, per se, if you want to call it that, is I teach piano and I instruct music.
And you actually just opened up a music school in the area, didn't you?
I did a year and a half ago with an associate, Paula Greiner. She and I have been both teaching for years, and we opened up a new facility in Northeastern called the Steadfast School of Music and Arts. And we have about 12 teachers there, and encompasses all instruments as well as voice, drama, art, and photography. So it's going well, and we're happy there, and I teach, I instruct Monday through Thursdays.
And where can people find more information about your music school and how to get lessons from you?
Well, they can call, actually, if anybody has any questions personally, they can call my cell phone. I'll be glad to take their call at 508-254-9178, or you can look us up online, steadfastschool.com, and notably, Steadfast is spelled S-T-E-D-F-A-S-T. There's no A in there. Okay, steadfastschool.com, and it lists our instructors, it lists our special events, our individual classes, group classes, that you can find all you need to know there.
So they can learn how to play piano from the guy who is the musical director and pianist for Charlie Thomas.
They can. I'll sure do my best for them. And, we teach all ages and levels and all styles, beginners, advanced, kids through retirees. It doesn't matter. You just want to come down. It's a great environment and have fun and learn.
Well, Jack, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program with us this morning. We'd love to have you on the program again at some point. I want you and Charlie Thomas in our studio together someday playing some music. How's that sound?
We'll absolutely do that. Now, you need to practice tonight.
I do. You have to write down what 3 chords you need to know, and I am going to rock it at the City Hall Plaza Wednesday night.
I look forward to that. And thank you for the opportunity of being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on. That is Jack Colombo, Brockton resident and musical director for Charlie Thomas's Drifters, playing City Hall Plaza in Boston tomorrow night. Show starts at 7 o'clock. It's a free show. Come on down. We definitely want to see you there. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. We'll step aside for a quick break. When we return, Mike Pava has a news update for us in the WXBR newsroom. Stick with us.